I am Senator George Thompson Sekibo, Commander of the Order of the Niger. I represent the Rivers East Senatorial District. Mr. President, thank you for inviting me and giving me the privilege to move the motion on the urgent need to investigate alleged financial recklessness in the Niger Delta Development Commission. Mr. President, the Senate is aware that the Niger Delta Development Commission was established following the enactment of the Commission's Establishment Act No. 6, 2000, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, as a federal government response to the long-term agitation of the people of the Niger Delta region. The Senate is aware further that the people of the Niger Delta region has clamored against the backwardness and underdevelopment of their region, the environmental devastation of the area occasioned by the oil and gas exploitation and exploration activities, as well as the production of same in the area for over 60 years going. The Senate notes that the federal government established the Commission in response to the request of the people of the region to fast-track development in the area and ameliorate the devastation done to the environment. Note also that the Act establishing the Commission has, among other functions, giving the Commission the following mandate in Part 2, Section 7, Subsection 1 and 2, as follows: to formulate policies and guidelines for the development of the Niger Delta area, conceive, plan, and implement in accordance with set rules and regulations, projects and programs for the sustainable development of the Niger Delta area in the field of transportation, including roads, jetties, waterways, health, education, employment, industrialization, agriculture and fisheries, housing and urban development, water supply, electricity and telecommunications, etc., etc. The Senate is worried that the accelerated development envisaged by the NDDC Establishment Act has not actually impacted on the region. 20 years after its establishment, as the operators of the Commission's policies and programs are neither focused or have completely abandoned the initial desire of the people of the area and use the Commission's funds on programs and policies that do not commensurate with the funds so far transmitted to it by the federal government and other donors. The Senate is worried further that there has been large acquisition of misuse of funds by previous management of the Commission, which portrayed the Commission as a financial conduit pipe, especially when the aspiration of the founding fathers have been forsaken. The Senate believes that visible financial recklessness may have prompted the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to set up an Interim Management Committee, IMC, while ordering a forensic audit of the Commission so as to reposition it for its intended mandate. The Senate believes that while the President's action of setting up an IMC and a forensic audit may have been conceived to forestall the financial recklessness of the Commission and reposition it for fast-tracking for the development of the region, the IMC has been more bedeviled with the same financial misuse, misappropriation, misapplication, or outright fraud in the management of the funds of the Commission, The Senate is alarmed that the IMC has immunizated itself with undue gross misconduct in the fraudulent contract award without recourse to due processes and flagrant disobedience to the provisions of Section 19, 25, 41, 42 of the Public Procurement Act 2007. Worried that within the last 3 months, the Commission has spent over 40 billion naira of the Commission's fund without recourse to the established process of funds disbursement, which has opened up further suspicion among stakeholders of the Niger Delta region. Worried further of the IMC's arbitrary use of executive power in alleged wrongful sacking of management staff of the Commission, without recourse to establish civil service rules and practice, with the aim of concealing the fraudulent financial recklessness they have committed. It's now understand that many of the management staff sacked, if not all, still has many years to retirement based on the civil service rules, order, and precedents. The Senate observes that the IMC has lost credibility and is seen as a financial conduit part based on opinions of stakeholders in the region. This therefore urgently calls for an intervention by the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to instill confidence in the people for whom the Commission was primarily established. Note that the provision of Section 88 of the 1999 Constitution as amended has conferred on the National Assembly, the Senate in particular, that have been appropriating funds to the Commission the power to ascertain whether the sum of 40 billion naira so appropriated and the coffers of the Commission has been properly applied to programs with recourse to established processes and procedure as contained in the Commission's mandate. The Senate agrees that the Senate can invoke Section 89 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, which has given it an irrevocable mandate to carry out investigation on any department of government to which it appropriates funds, especially with the aim of exposing corruption, inefficiency, or waste in the management of such public funds. The Senate accordingly resolved to 1. Mandate its Committee on Niger Delta Affairs to carry out an holistic investigation on all issues relating to, but not limited to, the alleged misapplication and misappropriation of the sum of 40 billion naira by the Commission, as well as all procurement and financial transactions of the Commission in this fiscal year 2020, and any other matter that is not in accordance with the provision of the NDDC Establishment Act 2000 or any other extant law. 2. Mandate this Committee on Niger Delta Affairs to investigate the appropriateness of the alleged arbitrary sack of the management staff of the Commission. And 3. Direct this Committee to report its finding to the Senate in 3 weeks. Mr. Senate President, I so move.
Before I take contributions, I think my observations, issues you have raised should be alleged, because we are calling for investigation rather than speaking of the finality. I think the motion should rather indicate alleged. Otherwise, there will be no need for any investigation if we have confirmed. So I think we need to be properly guided. Senator Sirajuddin Ajibola.
Senator, my name is Dr. Sirajuddin Ajibola Bashiru. I'm raising the constitutional point of order based on Section 36 of the 1999 Constitution. The provision said that in the determination of civil rights and obligation of a citizen, a person is entitled to fair hearing within a reasonable time. Looking at the tenor of this motion on its face value as it has made certain far-reaching determination and conclusions, even without right to fair hearing being granted in that regard. Specifically, I refer to the last 4 paragraphs on page 469. One, part of it is that worried that within the last 3 months, the Commission has spent over 40 billion naira of the Commission's fund without recourse. No allege.
No, the Senate President.
No, the question is this: as it is now, if this Senate is taking this motion as drafted, the Senate is a Senate of record. This will be part of the record. I would say that.
Senator Ajibola, I think let me just intervene here. He made some observations, and that was to guide, and I said that should guide the Senate, because all those things he said are supposed to be allegations. They cannot be said with finality. Otherwise, there will be no need for investigations. And that will deny the other side the fair hearing principle. So I agree with you, but we have already made the observation that this Senate should be guided. These are allegations. They are not yet confirmed. So you may round up, please.
It is. As it were, based on the provision of the Constitution, the way the motion itself is drafted should not entitle it presently to a debate. And
distinguished, those things you have said reflected in our records, and those things I said to guide the debate, the Senate, will be reflected. So our records will be complete records. That we have raised those observations, you have made your own observations. So as for the debate, the motion can be debated. Senator Gabriel Suswam.
Yeah, Mr. President, let me also support your observation as it relates to the manner that the motion, and we are well guided by your observation. Mr. President, me and you, when we brought up this enactment in the year 2000, it was as a result of the agitation in the Niger Delta relating to the fact that they felt that they were marginalized and their land was in such a condition that needed something extra. Mr. President, then as a member of the Environmental Committee, we took a tour of the Niger Delta. When we came back and briefed the House was convinced that there was a need for us to make provisions other than the budgetary provisions so that the Niger Delta could be developed. Mr. President, since the constitution of the Niger Delta Development Commission, there has been one controversy from one to another. Mr. President, you will recall that when we resumed here, names were brought for our approval as members of the board of the Niger Delta and the management. Mr. President, shortly after we approved those names, we heard that...
Distinguished Senator Suswam, I think the motion is about financial issues. So let's talk to the motion.
Mr. President, I watch television day in, day out, and all you listen to are people being sacked from the management of the Niger Delta. I watch it, and so amount of money being expended. And the question I've always asked is whether these monies have followed due process. Now, the allegations on ground in the motion here that heavy amount of money has been expended by the Interim Management Committee, and these monies are not, the expenditure has not followed due process. Mr. President, there is the absolute need, and I think the prayer speaks for themselves. Let us mandate the appropriate committee, which is the Niger Delta Committee, to comprehensively investigate all of these allegations and report back to the Senate So, Mr. President, I strongly support that the Niger Delta Committee should engage in a comprehensive investigation of the Interim Management Committee as to ascertain whether these allegations are true or not. And if the allegations are true, appropriate sanctions should be meted out on the Interim Management Committee. Mr. President, I so support.
Senator Ibn Allah.
I am a bit in difficulty to really situate myself about the contents of this motion. But I think I'm encouraged by my brother and friend Bashir, who raised the provision of Section 36 of the Constitution. I don't have the Constitution here, but I'm sure my memory will not fail me. That provision says, and I quote, "In the determination of his civil rights and obligation, he shall be entitled to fair hearing by a court or tribunal constituted in such a manner as to secure its independence and impartiality." Those who are reading the Constitution, I'm sure my memory has not failed me. Now, as a Senate, we already have a committee, the Niger Delta Committee, whose responsibility is to ensure that in its oversight function, the money we have appropriated to Niger Delta Development Commission is appropriately utilized or spent. In this case, sir, we have not received any report from that committee to date indicating that something of this magnitude has happened in the Niger Delta Commission. Now, the consequence of that is this, sir. In view of the fact that we have not received any report from this committee, in view of the fact that the Senate has mandated this committee to be its eye as far as the money appropriated to that commission is concerned, they become incapacitated to have our mandate to investigate this matter. And what that means is that while the motion stays valid, it may be nice and appropriate and in accordance with the provision of our Constitution and our rules to establish an ad hoc committee to investigate and report back to the Senate. The reason being that this same Constitution that we rely upon to form the framework of governance will raise a situation where we will put a precedent that may not necessarily be convenient in the management of the affairs of this Senate. I therefore urge that when we come to the prayer, a strong ad hoc committee be established for the purpose of this assignment, and then the dates suggested can remain as the suggested date for this assignment. I so state.
The observations made by the Senate President that the issues raised in this memo be considered as allegations. Having said that, I rise to second this motion because I consider it very timely and germane. To my mind, and which is true, every establishment such as the Niger Delta Development Commission, which is a parastatal, is expected to be governed and administered in line with the public service rules and provisions of the financial regulations. So, on the face value of this motion, taking the issues raised as allegations, I do not think that the Interim Management Committee is exempted from following the established or the contents of the public service rules applicable in the Federal Public Service of Nigeria, and of course the financial regulations. It is on that note that I strongly second this motion that the allegations presented to the Senate be properly investigated, because we cannot stand by and observe the Interim Management Committee run the affairs of the agency or the commission in violation of the provisions of the financial regulations as alleged, and of course the public service rules, by terminating appointments of directors of the commission without complying with the provisions of the public service rules. Because we have been told that it will take to the end of the year for the Interim Management Committee. As a member of the NDDC committee, I'm aware that it will take this interim committee from now till the end of the year to conclude the forensic audits. And because they overseen the audit, forensic audit of the commission does not give them a license to run the affairs of the commission without following the provisions of the public service rules and regulations. It is on that note that I strongly support, second, the motion as ably moved by Senator George Sekebo. Thank you, I so move.
Senator Shakwabo.
I rise to actually second this motion again and add voice to it. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the reason why these commissions are formed is to actually help develop those regions and look at their peculiar problems. I was discussing with a few of my colleagues. Today, this same Senate has passed Southeast Development Commission, second reading, North Central Development Commission, second reading, Northeast Development Commission is already a commission. Mr. President, if you look at newspapers all over, on the 8th of December 2019, the Nation newspaper described NDDC as Corruption Incorporated. On 18th January 2020, the Minister for Niger Delta described NDDC as cesspool of corruption. Mr. President, it is the duty of the Senate to not only investigate, but to restore the confidence of Nigerians on any arm of government. Mr. President, this motion is apt, it is timely, and I join my colleague and my chairman, Senate Committee on Navy, Senator Dr. Sekebo, to call for thorough investigation, including forensic audit of NDDC, so that the other communities that are coming should not be like NDDC, more especially the Northeast Development Commission. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Uche Okunefe.
Mr. President,
please support this very, very important bill. Why I say important, of course, because I know this 9th Senate is against corruption totality. And of course, it's an allegation. Therefore, we have to investigate this allegation. This NDDC, of course, has been on pages of Nigerian papers every day on issue of corruption. So I think, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, it's high time to look at these allegations seriously and also find out, yes, what are the causes, so that at least this issue will be stopped. I think presently there's approval by Federal Executive Council, at least on forensic auditing on NDDC. Therefore, at least we have to also do something to make sure that, yes, all these allegations, if proved, definitely something has to be done. Another thing, Mr. President, if, of course, allegation is only for 2020, why can't we just at least take back this investigation, at least 2015 to date, so that we can definitely find out the roots of all this corruption, everyday corruption, NDDC. I think, and not only also to allow this Niger Delta, let's also have, just as one of our colleagues suggested, let's have an ad hoc committee that will investigate this question, so that with the aim of bringing everything corruption and NDDC to the end. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Aishatu Dahiru Ahmed.
Representing Adamawa Central. Mr. President, I will be very brief. While I'm supporting what Senator Abdibola said and in line with what Senator Abba said, but if you look at this motion critically, quoting the Constitution, the section 36 of the Constitution, what the motion is saying is that it's not saying they should take these NDDC people directly from their offices to the prison or directly from their offices to the court of law. What it's simply saying is that they should, the committee on Niger Delta should come up with a holistic investigation of the activities of 2020. So in spite of the fact that that constitution is there, that constitutional provision of 36 is there, it's in line, since the motion is not stating that they should be prosecuted directly. So that is just what I'm trying to point at. At the same time, I think the committee on Niger Delta can do the work effectively, since they are also members of the Senate. They are also distinguished senators. So why should, since the committee is in place, there is no need for coming up with another ad hoc committee. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Adetunbi.
Mr. President, I rise to speak on this motion. I remain Senator Adetunbi of Plateau North. Okay. This motion is on the urgent need to investigate alleged financial recklessness in the Niger Delta Development Commission. Mr. President, I would want to restrict myself to the powers of the Senate to undertake this nature of investigation. And of course, the investigative powers of the Senate is not in doubt, as provided for in Section 88 and 89 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And those powers that will expose corruption, inefficiency, or waste. Mr. President, the resolution that has been proposed is for the Niger Delta Committee to undertake this investigation. And it is in line with the precedents and practice of Parliament. One issue that came up during the impeachment proceedings against President Trump in America was the fact that the Senate faulted the inability of the House committee to secure a House resolution before conducting that inquest. And it was one of the grounds that was used to collapse the position of the House in the Senate. It is expected that before any committee can conduct any investigative hearing, it must secure a resolution of the Senate or of the House, as the case may be. So it is in that light that the Committee on Niger Delta, through this motion, is seeking the resolution of the Senate to undertake this investigative exercise, which is intended to address the allegations that have been raised in this motion. And in that wise, I support that the Committee on Niger Delta should, in line with our practice, and presidents undertake this investigation. I therefore support the resolution as contained in the motion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, will go to the prayers. Is there anybody against the motion? The Senate resolves to mandate its committee on Niger Delta affairs to carry out an holistic investigation on all issues relating to, but not limited to, the alleged misapplication and misappropriation of the sum of 40 billion naira by the Commission, as well as all procurements and financial transactions of the Commission in this fiscal year 2020, and any other matter that is not in accordance with the provision of the NDDC Establishment Act 2000 or any other extant law. Those in favor of these motions, of this prayer, say aye. Amendment, Senator Olubunmi Adetunbi.
Mr. President, you can only appreciate this amendment if you give me a minute to explain. What you have before you is a motion by distinguished Senator Sekibo. It's not a motion by the committee seeking the resolution of this House to conduct investigation, for the record.
And now do your amendment.
My amendment is an ad hoc committee be appointed to investigate the affairs of the Niger Delta Commission, to undertake a holistic investigation on all issues relating to, but not limited to, the alleged misapplication and misappropriation of the sum of 40 billion by the Commission, as well as procurements and financial transactions of the Commission in this fiscal year 2020, and any other matter that is not in accordance with the provision of the NDDC Establishment Act 2009 or any other extant law.
Any second.
North, and I rise to second the motion raised by Senator Naala, the amendment, sorry, by Senator Naala. I so second. Thank you.
I'll put the question now. Those in favor of the prayer as amended, say aye. Aye. Those against, say nay. Nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2. Mandate, the Senate mandate its committee on Niger Delta affairs to investigate appropriateness of the alleged arbitrary sack of the management staff of the Commission. Those in favor of prayer 2, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. And prayer 3, direct its committee to report its findings. No, the committee is now. And I want an amendment here. Instead of 3, can someone make it 4? 4 weeks instead of 3 weeks. Yes, Senator Okunife.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to move that the committee should make their findings available within 4 weeks. Mr. President, I move.
Senator Aboroji.
President, I'm Senator Aboroji Brin, representing Kano North. I stand to second the motion ably moved by Senator Uche Okunife. I so second.
Those in favor, aye. Those against, any, the ayes have it. Let me explain the rationale behind prayer 2. Prayer 2 has not gone to the ad hoc committee because this is supposed to be a routine thing that the committee on Niger Delta should be doing. So there is no need to give it to the ad hoc committee, and I think we can leave them to handle that. Thank you very much, distinguished colleagues. These things can be quite serious at times. When there is so much allegation around, it is our duty to investigate. And in the process, we should give people the right of fair hearing. They should be able to defend themselves. We should operate within the laws governing all our investigations. The ad hoc committee has the following membership. Senator Olubunmi Adetunbi, chairman. Senator Ibrahim Hassan Hadeja, member. Senator Halluru Jika, member. Senator Umaru Tanko Almakura, member. Senator Mpigi Barinada, member. Senator Abdul Fatai Buhari, member, and Senator Chukuka Utazi, member. Thank you very much. Leader of the Senate. Are you raising point of order? Okay, next time. Leader of the Senate.
Thank you very much. I'm coming under Order 43. Personal explanation, sir. You have just announced the composition of the ad hoc committee for this investigation, but erroneously omitted Northwest in particular. We are equally interested in seeing what happens there, sir.
No, there is, unless you have excised Jigawa out of Northwest. Senator Ibrahim Hassan Hadeja is from Jigawa State, my neighbor. We are willing to take him to Northeast. Okay. Senator Ibrahim Hassan Hadeja is a member. Point of order, Senator.
Mr. President, it's a constitutional order. Order 14.3. Section 14. Huh? Okay. No.
You may read.
The composition of the government of the Federation or any of its agencies and the conduct of its affairs shall be carried out in such manner as to reflect the federal character of Nigeria and the need to promote national unity and also to command national loyalty. Mr. President, I want to speak on the national unity and national loyalty. Mr. President, today we have communication from Mr. President. Executive communication, appointment into Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission. You don't have any woman there.
Okay, I will, before you go any further, I want to remind you that this is only for a number of vacant. Do you have the entire 36, the larger picture?
Then you have the confirmation for members of federal character. You have just 2 women out of 36 states and out of 38 nominees. Today, Mr. President, you have just again appointed the members of ad hoc committee. No woman. Meanwhile, every one of you want our loyalty. You want our loyalty. I'm not talking about federal character. I'm talking about national unity and loyalty. You want the loyalty of the women. You want a united Nigeria, and you are discriminating against women. How do you now continue to earn our loyalty if we are not going to be accommodated?
Okay, you have raised a point of order. Can I rule? Can I rule, please? Please. You are not debating a motion. You have made a synopsis of it. First of all, let me say that how we wish we had more on the list. But that's not our decision. It was the decision of the executive to nominate those. Secondly, just hold on. We'll listen to you. Secondly, these are the kind of issues that you can raise early enough. Now you can still go further when the committee brings its report to say this thing that you've said. But I think loyalty is something that we all owe our country. If we have issues, we voice our issues. We cannot, especially as leaders, doubt if we can be loyal because of this kind of appointment. Besides, the chairperson of this FCC, the Federal Character Commission, I learned is a lady from Kwara. And that is a very big development, because I can't remember if there was at any time the chairmanship of Federal Character Commission was made by a woman. This time we have. And that is to say that we are making progress. But I agree with you, we should have more. Thank you. So your point of order is noted. Leader of the Senate. Point of order, Senator Michael Openi.
And distinguished colleagues, my point of order is pursuant to Section 14, subsection 3 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. Mr. President, why am I insistent on making this point of order? It is because all of us who are knowledgeable in different areas owe it to this Senate and of course to the Federal Republic of Nigeria to always place such specific knowledge at the disposal of this institution when issues are being debated. A point of order must be heard at all times. However, when a point of order is made, it must be relevant. The point of order raised by Senator Uche Ekunife, pursuant to this same provision of the Constitution on which I am standing, Mr. President, addresses issues as to geography, not gender. And we are all conversant with the provisions of our Constitution and our relevant laws when it comes to issues of gender gerrymandering. However, with respect to issues of federal character, is to address matters of geography that no persons from only a section of the country shall dominate the governance of Nigeria. And this should not be mixed up with issues of gender. I just felt I should make this very clear for the purpose of our debate and for the record of the Senate. Thank you, Mr.
Your point of order is of the Senate. Point of order, Senator.
Personal explanation. Mr. President, it will be necessary for me to place on record because this is a house of records, and whatever we say here will always come up, and you may be held responsible for that. My learned colleague in the bar, Senator Nala, raised a point of order, and in the process, he said that the committee failed to perform its duty. That was his reason, and it's on record. And then, when the issue was raised again, he went further to say that Senator Sekibo did not bring it on behalf of the committee. I am at loss about that. First, Senator Sekibo is a member of the Committee on Niger Delta Affairs. And everything he did here was in consonance and with approval of members of this committee. For him to say that unless the motion is brought in the name of the committee, is a misnomer. And motions are not brought in the name of committees. It has never happened in this Senate, and I stand to be correct unless a report is brought in the name of a committee. Secondly, Mr. President, because I want this thing to be on record, nothing is for anything. Secondly, Mr. President, he went further in the process to say we are stopped, because the language he was supposed to use is stop. A stop means that we have relegated on our powers or on our functions. That's what it means. That is not correct. The period under investigation is 3 months. If you can follow the motion. Within the period under investigation, this Senate has been locked. And this is the first time since we went on this that we are taking a motion on the floor of this Senate. The first sitting we did not take a motion. This is the second sitting in which we are taking a motion. And so say that a member of the committee brought a motion and it was debated, and then you said that the committee has relegated on the power. It's an affront on the integrity and personality of some of us who serve in that country. He is a lawyer. I am 31 years in the bar, and that he cannot make such a derogatory statement about me.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chairman, for the explanation. Chairman, I want to assure you that there is no, it wasn't the intention of the Senate to take away the responsibility of the Committee on Niger Delta Development Commission, your committee, the committee you chair. We believe that you have been doing your work, and personally I know how we have been involved together as far as the NDDC is concerned. But this is something that was put to vote, and this is a parliament. Once we took a vote like we did, and the decision of the Senate now is binding on all of us. Now let me say that it's not new, it's not strange or unusual to have an ad hoc committee even when you have a standing committee. We in the 9th Senate set up ad hoc committees, and I recall that in 2011, July 2011, I headed a committee, ad hoc committee to investigate public privatization. There was a committee on BPE, the Bureau of Public Enterprise at that time, headed by Senator Benga Obadara from Ogun. But so this is just the workings of the Senate. All that we need to do is to ensure that our committees, whether they are ad hoc or standing committees or special committees, do their work within the confines and regulations of our laws and standing orders. So I want to assure you that nothing impinges on the integrity of the committee or the members or you as a person. So with this, I want to say that we are all together in this thing. All we want is to ensure that there is sanity in what is allegedly happening in the Niger Delta Development Commission. Thank you. Before I put the question, let me remind us that we have given several committees some work to do. So we are only suspending sitting until next week. Our committees will continue to do their duties, and if there is need for us to come back before the legislative week ends for an emergency sitting, we would. So with this, let me put the question. Those in favor of the motion that the Senate suspends sitting until Tuesday next week, the 12th day of May 2020, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate is hereby adjourned until Tuesday, 12th day of May 2020 at 10 a.m. prompt.